Good morning, everyone. My name is Raghav, and I work at VWO as an associate marketing manager for the US region. I will be your moderator for this event. Before we take off, I would like to take a moment to introduce our guest to you, Nimrod Kuzal. Nimrod is Lusha's head of growth marketing and specialist in scaling the ad spend by optimizing contradicting sales funnels with over a decade of experience. He has integrated his unique testing philosophy into the experimentation process and accelerated Lusha's growth to never seen before levels. He's a user acquisition expert with MA in social psychology. He's someone who takes joy in building acquisition departments from scratch to scale with a positive ROI. More importantly, he has worked with organizations in all the major verticals that you can think of. It could be travel, SaaS, e-commerce, gaming, you name it, and he has literally been there. Nimrod, welcome to this session, and thank you for taking the time to enlighten us on what it actually takes to build and drive a culture of experimentation in a PLG company. I'd also like to extend a very warm welcome to our audience today. Thank you for joining in, and I hope you enjoy this webinar. I hope you'd like to ask questions as well. Please feel free to put it out as comments in the chat box, and I ensure that at the very end of this webinar, I will bug Nimrod to answer each and every query or concern that you had throughout the presentation. More importantly, if any point of time you think that the audio issue has occurred from anyone's end, please spam immediately so that I can solve it immediately. I assure you, we will be picking questions at the very end, and Nimrod will offer the responses. With this, I would like to invite Nimrod to present, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghav, for your kind words. I hope everything is clear in terms of that you can see my screen and can hear the audio. So
Yes,
as Raghav, everything's okay?
Oh, everything okay.
Perfect. So as introduced, today's topic is going to be about how to fuel your PLG website for hypergrowth and the challenges that we faced both in testing and both in dealing with what seem to be two contradictory funnels. So first of all, I'll obviously introduce myself. I'll introduce Lusha. We'll talk about what a PLG is for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, what it means to do growth at a PLG, the challenges that we faced with having these two contradictory funnels that I'll talk about, and I'll also give you a few examples to take home with you about tests that we accomplished at Lusha, and hopefully can help you grow your business as well. So first of all, so I've been at Lusha for over 1.5 years. I managed in that time to build a performance team that scaled our monthly ad budget from around 5,000 to nearly 2 million, and build a nice amount of user acquisition managers and growth managers during that time. I have over 10 years of experience in paid advertising. Really, like Raghav said, in gaming and hospitality and e-commerce, B2B SaaS, I really experienced the differences and the challenges of each and every vertical. And last but not least, a big Holmes fan. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Lusha, and I'm sure that's a lot of you in the audience, so Lusha is a pretty recent unicorn, and it was founded in 2016. And we have nearly 1 million users up to date. And what we do is we provide revenue teams with a sales intelligence solution that allows them to shorten their sales cycle and increase revenue. We allow them to connect directly with their prospects. and in that process to really increase their connectivity rates, their qualified meetings, and hopefully from there, their revenue. The basis of Lusha is a PLG company, and I'll go into what a PLG company means in the next slide. But it really helped us to build our business and create a big amount of user acquisition scale. This is an example of one of our products, which is the prospecting platform. It basically allows you to create audiences through the various filters that we have in order for you to directly contact the prospects that you need in order to grow your business. And it's what's been leading us, our major product in the past 6 months. So I mentioned PLG company. And what this means is PLG stands for product-led growth. And what this means is you put in the center your product as your growth mechanism, your true growth engine. In the past, and there still are companies that use the more traditional scaling method. And what you do is you have, a contact us method, a contact us funnel, in which you reach out to potential clients and try to get them to book a demo and be in touch directly with your sales team. And what that puts a lot of pressure, obviously, on the sales team, and it also limits the scope of how much you can actually grow, and it also brings a pretty high acquisition cost. Now, when you are a PLG company, you put the product itself in the center. And what that means is user acquisition is done through the product, and so is retention and the reduction of churn. You usually offer some kind of freemium package, and great examples of that are, for instance, other than Lusha, are Zoom or Slack or Dropbox, that give users a real taste of the benefits of the product. They actually can experience the product. They can even have short-term successes through the use of the product, but the success of the product pushes them later on into purchasing packages which give them more features and more flexibility. And this is all done through the product itself, and that way it makes the entire company aligned with what the product needs in order to grow. In the marketing aspect, as I mentioned earlier, when you go with the traditional funnel, you're a marketing team, and all you need to do is generate qualified leads for your sales teams. Usually what you'll end up doing is focusing mostly on lead gen capturing. And that means that you're gonna focus mostly on the bottom of the funnel. You're gonna try and capture the audiences that are most likely to convert, are most ready to be pushed into a demo and into sales. Now, when you work at a PLG company, that gives the marketing team a lot more flexibility in terms of acquisition, because now suddenly you don't have to necessarily go onto the bottom part of the funnel, but you can also target people in the mid to high, because you know that they have some interest in the industry or in the product, or they're even in the consideration mode. And in that case, you really just need to push them into the product. You give them a free trial to test it out, and from there on, you hopefully see a conversion. But it puts the emphasis on the product itself to really create the conversion, to create the conversion to a paying customer. And in that case, when you know that your product actually offers the right benefits to the right target audience, then there's no reason this shouldn't happen. And in that case, it really allows you to lower your cost of acquisition and create user acquisition at scale like we did at Lusha. So as I mentioned in the beginning, what we'll talk about in this webinar isn't just about dealing with the two contradictory funnels, but also how we came up with our testing method, and how we used it in order to create the growth on our website. And if I divide it into three very simple parts, the first one is obviously we always think what we want to improve. And that's usually in correlation with our KPIs. We try to think what can we do in order to improve our KPIs, to reach our KPIs, or even surpass them. Now, in order to do that, obviously we have to collect data. And I'll go into that in the next few slides of how exactly we collect data from which different sources and what we look at in order to do so. And very last, after we did the first two parts, then obviously we're going to try and think of a hypothesis of how we can actually improve what we've been doing so far in order to reach the KPIs that we want to reach. So when it comes to data sources, I would say we can divide it into four main groups. So obviously the first one is Google Analytics, a very useful tool that I'm sure every marketeer has used at some point. Obviously it gives you a great benefit of understanding usage and events and the activity and user journey on the website. Second is ad platforms. Now ad platforms at Lusha, since we're dealing with with a pretty big marketing budget, and we can really utilize ad platforms that we can take findings from and later on test on the website. And I'll go into depth about that a bit later in the webinar. The third are obviously calls or surveys or interviews, whatever you want to call them, in which you talk directly to your users and understand how they experience the user journey, the website, the landing page, the creative, and the product itself. And through that, you can really complete what you found through Google Analytics and the ad platforms. And the last one is a tool such as VWO, which allows you to look at heat maps and session recordings and really understand the data that you're seeing in a more in-depth way. So if we take those four sections and we divide them into two groups, we can basically look at it as quantitative and qualitative. Now, if we start with the qualitative, and that's the heat maps and the recordings and the interviews, obviously it's very now hard to create it, to do it in scale, right? I mean, you're not going to now probably look at thousands of recordings or go through hundreds of interviews. But that being said, there's still a lot of value with even looking at 30 recordings or doing 15 or 8 interviews. And the same obviously goes for heat maps. It's a great way to complement what you're seeing on the quantitative side. So when we look at the quantitative side, so I like to look at, or what we do at Lusha is we like to look at a few things. The first one is obviously user journey. We want to understand how are the users experiencing the website? How are they interacting? What types of pages are they visiting? What type of content are they reading? A second thing is number of pages. I mean, how many pages are they actually browsing through in one session? That's great to understand the story that is unfolded in front of them and to try and understand the psychology behind the user journey. Now, the third one, I believe, is a lot of times a bit overlooked, and I think it's great in finding hidden gems and things you don't necessarily find through the user journey, and that's page value. What page value is, for those who maybe haven't heard of it or haven't worked with it, what you do is in Google Analytics, you basically assign a value to one of the events that are important for you. In our case, for instance, we assigned $15 for a sign-up. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that a sign-up is worth $15, but it's just a number that we gave in a static way to every sign-up that occurs. And what we found when we look at page value is a lot of times there's obviously going to be pages that are very crucial in the user journey towards the sign up, and that's going to be the home page and the product page and the pricing page, and those are obviously going to have a very big page value, because what basically Google Analytics does, it takes the value and it divides it between the different pages. So those are obviously going to get a very high score. But then you'll find, and we've seen it at Lusha, you'll find pages you never thought had a specific value in creating a conversion. It could be a specific testimonial. It could be perhaps the About Us page. It perhaps can be some random page that that you inserted and weren't really sure the value that it necessarily has for a conversion, like maybe a specific content piece in the blog. So these are all things that we found out through the page value, and it can really help you in creating a better user journey and also a better story that you can tell to your users. And the last one is engagement metrics, and in this case, I'm talking about what we see from the ad platforms themselves, things like CTR and CVR, that really, it's an opportunity for you to engage directly with your audience, with your target audience, see what types of messaging they're taking action on, liking, commenting, or even just clicking and converting on later. It's great to understand how you can learn more about what pushes users towards action. So if we talk really specifically about PPC as a key source, and I mentioned that we have a pretty big ad spend budget, but even if you only have $5,000 or 10 or even 1,000, since if you spend it correctly, it still gives you volume. It still gives you usually more volume in a shorter period of time than you can find on your website. And for us, it's a great tool to really implement in our learnings and our testing for 4 key reasons. One is agility. You can easily create campaigns, you can easily pause them, you can easily create messaging. It's very easy and very simple and very quick to play around and target different segments and different geos, all in probably less than an hour. Second is like I mentioned, is data volume, especially when you do have big budgets, then obviously you get a lot of data that you can utilize. Third is, of course, the engagement metrics that I stated earlier, the fact that you have a direct interaction with your target audience. And the fourth is segmentation. You can create campaigns for different geos, for different devices, for different audiences. And this allows you to test different messaging and different landing pages and different funnels even through a quick and simple solution, and you can later on implement it on your website. So for instance, in our case at Lusha, since the paid team is constantly testing new messages in order to increase conversion rate and lower the CPA, what this gives us is a lot of data that we later on implemented on our website. We tested different H1s and H2s. We tested different benefits and different features that we showed that we saw had promise on through our ad platforms, and also different social proofing, different testimonials, perhaps different logos of companies. And these are all ways to really take what you learned in PPC and implement it on your website in order to create new tests and hopefully create growth from it. So I mentioned the collection of data and how we decide on what we want to improve. But now, and for instance, in our case, we look at really the different KPIs that we might have or different events that we believe might lead to increasing our KPIs, such as signups or demos or pages visited or average session time. But after we collected the data and we decided what we need to improve and what we want to improve, we start thinking, okay, from the data, from what we need to do, the goal we need to achieve, how can we improve it? And lastly, why should it work? So we, for instance, we would test things like different messaging, or perhaps a different layout of the website, perhaps different colors, or even creating a different user journey through linking. And all this is obviously based on the data that we collected, in which we found specific patterns, or we found some kind of finding that we would like to test later on. And then finally, we obviously, before we decide on the test and implement it, we also need to think and come to an agreement why we actually think this should work. An example in our case was that we saw that PPC ad users engaged much better with yellow pages. Yellow pages on the landing page, each time we had the hero in the landing page was in yellow instead of blue, we saw a higher conversion rate. And that is definitely something that we wanted to test later on our website, or in specific pages, in order to see if we can duplicate the same results. So after we gone through our testing method at Lusha and how we decide on what to test and how to test and why we should succeed, one of the main issues that we have in Lusha, and this also kind of frames everything that has to do with our testing methods, is that we're in a real contradictory of funnels. And that's why, on the one hand, as I mentioned, we're a PLG company. And as a PLG company, we believe strongly that user acquisition, growth marketing needs to work by pushing users directly into the product for them to experience it, and then go to the self-service packages that have what we call no touch, meaning there's no salesperson involved, and create growth through that. However, at the same time, as a company that's growing, as a company that needs to support a pretty big monthly ad spend, we also need to generate a steady stream of income. We also need to be able to predict our income. And in order to do so, we need to be able to create what we call enterprise packages, which are deals that are done through the sales team. So we need to support, at the same time, we need the self-service to be able to send people into the smaller packages, which are usually $40 a month or $80 a month. But at the same time, we also need to continue to grow the number of users who contact sales. Now, if we look at our website, you can see that our main CTA is start for free. So that's still what we want to push users into. We want them to engage with the product. At the same time, though, we have to make it easy for them to contact sales. And also, perhaps there's specific users that we might identify that we don't want them to go through the self-service. Perhaps we want to push them directly into contacting sales, because that will allow us to increase our revenue in a much faster way and support our growth. So we find ourselves constantly battling in how to do so. How are we supposed to support both these funnels and create growth on both of them? So the way we found a solution for this dilemma, or we think we do, is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to combine them. And what this means when we combine them is, first of all, our primary CTA is still going to be start for free. We haven't changed that. However, there are specific pages in which we believe that attend more to the needs of more enterprise level packages. For instance, it could be a specific content piece, a blog piece, which is more about strategy and for bigger sales teams. So obviously that might be more relevant to somebody from a company in the size of Google or Amazon, instead of a small business of only 50 employees. So when we see, or when we identify pages that support that, what we call that story, the enterprise story, then we might changed the CTA and put the contact sales CTA as the primary one. Another one is really using the content to generate demand. And in that case, to really kind of pump up users to perhaps, even though if they go through the self-service and they experience the product, but still through testimonials, through specific blog pieces, to show them the value of having a bigger package and booking a demo with the sales team. And the third one, which is I think also very important, is we have two separate experiences for new visitors and logged in users. Logged in users means they already have an account. So if you're a new visitor, you'll definitely get the initial CTA of start for free. However, if you have an account and you visit a specific page, then we'll show you we'll only show you the talk to us or contact sales. So a great example of that is the fact that up till a few months ago, we didn't even have an enterprise page. And the idea was that not only do we need an enterprise page to tell the story of us offering enterprise packages, but what we also did is that we created that same differentiation between new visitors and logged in users. So a new visitor would still see the sign up for free when they visited the page, meaning we'll still push them into that PLG funnel, into that self-service funnel. However, if it's a logged in user, then they'll only see a talk to us or a test that we might do. We always play around with, obviously, test different CTAs, but it could be talk to us or contact sales or book a demo, but that would be the option that a logged in user sees. And we actually saw a 15% uplift in SQLs through this page and through the fact that we suddenly, for the first time, this was the first time we had on our website a contact sales CTA other than our pricing page. So this was a pretty big change for us, and we saw the immediate impact from doing so. So as promised, I'll share with you a few tests that we did at Lusha that I hope you can take back with you and perhaps find a way to implement on in your business to generate growth. So first and foremost, after we do the test, we always look at this tree in order to analyze the results. And I'll show you immediately an example of what happens when we don't do this. And basically, to kind of generalize this, we always, first of all, look, did we do this test on all geos and all sources, or did we do this test on specific geos or specific sources? And I'll show you a great example of how much this is important. And I've been surprised many times how many times people have actually neglected to do so. Not necessarily, but I mean overall in my experience, it's not something that people always think. And this is a great example because we did a test, and as you do, an A/B test on our homepage, and we did it across all geos and across all sources. And what we saw that the control lost to the test. Now, before we stopped the test and concluded, well, this is a failure, going back to the drawing board and trying to think of a new way to improve results, we looked at it for 1 second, or not exactly 1 second, but we really went in depth in analyzing the results. And what we saw is this. Now, US is our biggest audience, our biggest target audience. However, it's still just a third of our audience. And what that means is obviously the rest of the world has a much bigger impact on the results of the test. And what we actually saw is when we broke the results down into different geos, we saw that US, actually the test beat the control by 50%. And what skewed results in favor of the control was the rest of the world. And obviously, we implemented this on the US and went back to the drawing board in the case of the rest of the world. But we almost missed a great opportunity to improve our conversion rate. And this is because we didn't initially, if you don't segment, you might lose this opportunity. And I'm sure there's a lot of tests out there in the audience, in cases where you perhaps did an A/B test on the entire audience and neglected to see the difference between the different sources or the different geos, and you might be missing out on great opportunities for growth just because you didn't go in depth and really found these hidden gems. So that's an example of one of the tests that we did at Lusha. The second test that we did, and this is actually one of my favorite tests because I think it's not something you usually do test, and that was the navigation bar. Now, obviously, so we looked at the data, and what we saw is that two things, or actually one main thing is that our product pages are the best converting pages on our website. The problem was, though, that they're not necessarily getting the amount of volume that we want them to. We're not seeing enough users going from the home page to the product pages or from the blog to the product pages. And we thought that this is a great opportunity to increase conversion. Furthermore, it's a great opportunity to enrich the user, to give him more in-depth knowledge of what Lusha is about and to experience not just what he sees on the homepage, but also our different products and different solutions. And what you can see on the bottom is the navigation bar that we had, which stated why Lusha, and under why Lusha, you have the product pages and the solution pages. And like I said, we felt that not enough people are clicking on why Lusha and going into the product pages. And on the upper part, basically what we did is we separated it. We took the why Lusha and we separated it into products and solutions, really hoping to see a difference in conversion. So as I said, our hypothesis was that the more users reach our product pages, the more they're likely to convert. And the means was simply to create a simple version of the navigation bar. And the result? Unfortunately, no difference whatsoever. Now, this is still something, I mean, we were very disappointed to see that result. However, this just means that we need to go back to the drawing board and do it again. We're certainly going to do this test again. I think that the navigation bar is something that websites don't test enough. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And it's definitely something that we'll try to work on again, because I really believe that it's something that we can optimize and create a difference in our conversion. And the last test is optimizing towards better mobile conversions. So since I come from paid and since Lusha relies heavily on user acquisition, that means obviously we spend a lot of money on platforms such as Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn, which are, especially YouTube and Facebook, are heavily relied on mobile inventory. And mobile is hard to convert. And since we're a B2B SaaS company and our platform is on desktop, that makes us usually, we always thought desktop first, and we never really took the time and the effort to really optimize our mobile landing pages and mobile website. And what we did is we put it as a priority. Like I said, when we decided on testing, we knew our KPI was to increase signups. We knew that through the data, the collection of data, we knew that there's a lot of mobile inventory that we're not utilizing, that the conversion rate is much lower than expected. And we approached it by thinking, okay, how can we improve this? And what you can see here is on the right, you can see the older version. And what you have here is a GIF, which obviously impacts loading time. And what you see is also big icons that really you need to scroll in order to see all of them. On the left, you have the newer version. which doesn't have a GIF. The icons, you can see them in one snapshot, so you don't really need to scroll. And we really believe that these things will allow us to increase growth. And we really saw that once we focused on first being a mobile first design, having bigger text, icons that are telling the story, that we're having less scrolling and no GIFs for faster loading time. And we did see an increase of 10% in our conversion. And we'll keep on obviously working on our mobile pages in order to bring them in par with desktop. So really the key takeaways, I think, is that, first of all, even if you have several business goals, you really need to prioritize and optimize like we do when we try to balance between having basically two funnels, the self-service and the demos, but we find a way to combine them. Whenever it's more appropriate to put the sign up for free, we'll put the sign up for free. And whenever we feel that we can push users into contacting sales, we'll do that. But it's since we prioritize and we decide what's more important and what opportunities we should do what. The second is that we really believe in collecting data from every source possible. PPC, Google Analytics, recordings from VWO. They are all great resources in collecting data and implementing tests on your website. We really couldn't create growth on the website if we didn't utilize them, especially PPC, because it really allows and gives us volume and agility and segmentation that we can later on take to the website. For instance, that same US messaging that I showed you is all based on things that we tested and found through our PPC ads. And the third thing is obviously never neglecting segmentation. I think that's the most important thing hopefully you can take from this webinar. You really can find hidden gems when you look at the data through different segments, and you might find that some tests that you might have deemed lost to control were actually successful when you look at specific segments. I want to thank you for your time and obviously for BWO hosting me.
Thank you, Nimrod, for this insightful presentation. I would definitely want to coin the term insightful, because the kind of process and the depth that you have covered for each topic is way too much resourceful from just a 35 to 40-minute view standpoint. And you have covered a lot, genuinely. So I'll respect everyone's timings in this presentation, and we have generally two questions with a similar context. I'll read out both the questions so that you can figure out your approach in the meanwhile. So Tim and Ruck asks about, the first question is, can you talk about the level of complexity in Lusha's tests? Did Lusha build up its own experimentation platform internally, or did you rely on third-party testing tools like VWO? I just want to give a disclaimer that Lusha is a VWO client with us. I think so, it goes. Yeah. The next question is that firstly, Rak is saying that thank you for sharing for the web platforms that you're using for your website. How did you manage the need to test different versions and be agile to it, versus the need for complex functions on your website? And essentially, again, the question is around the platform. Did you use the same platform, or you outgrew it? This is one specific type of question. I have another question for you by Matthew that I'll cover up in the later context. First, you can answer this one.
Sure. So first of all, obviously we rely on VWO. I mean, that's our testing tool for these tests. Obviously, that's what we use in order to test whether it's messaging or showing different pages to different IPs even. Now, I'm not quite sure like where exactly you want to go to talk about the complexity. Most of our tests at the end are around messaging and layouts and like I showed the navigation bar, or showing different CTAs. Now, the complexity comes from the segmentation itself, like our ability to identify between logged in users and new visitors, or users coming from the US IP versus UK IP or India IP. So those are usually the complexities. And for the second question, really about how to balance our business needs with testing, then usually what we do is we obviously start small. We don't necessarily always start with a 50-50. We'll start with 20%. We'll see how that goes. We'll see that everything is in place. Well, obviously, if a test seems to really fail, because this is a struggle that everybody has at growth. I mean, on the one time, you have KPIs. We constantly, I mean, we have KPIs we have to reach, and obviously testing is supposed to help that. But sometimes testing obviously hurts that. Perhaps we tested a different homepage that lowered our conversion by 10%. Perhaps we implemented a navigation bar that decreased conversion. So we do it gradually. We start with 20%. We see that everything's okay. We see that things are in direction, and then we'll gradually increase it to 50%. Now, obviously, we'll give it a week or two. If we see after a few days that it's really bringing results down, then obviously we'll stop and we'll see. Perhaps it's a technical issue, or perhaps really just the idea wasn't good. But I have to say that rarely happens. I mean, usually we'll find that the test is just a bit less than the control, or perhaps it's the same. We haven't really encountered, unless it was technical issues, a case in which really it just dropped us by 50%. But I think when you do things gradually and you check, then you'll probably be fine.
So I hope this answers the questions Tim and Rak you asked. With respect to time, I would want you to Nimrod, just take this question quickly, and this will be the last question for the webinar. The question is that you have two funnels essentially. So the question is, does the Lusha site have a pricing page or area where a user can directly sign up for a paid package if somebody has literally made up the mind that Lusha is something that they want to do?
So we
how
do have
you think? Let me just complete the question. Just a moment. How do you think about the pricing page in terms of balancing the site? Do you think sign up free funnel works better, or talk to us funnel works better, or what kind of funnel do you think is leveraged right? This is the question by Matthew.
Okay, so first of all the self-services have to first sign up. You cannot go through the self-service package without signing up. So that's the first thing, and obviously, yes, on the pricing page you'll be able to see all the self-service packages, and you're able to see the contact sales. And we do have a number of users who go directly to the contact sales. This does happen. It's very hard to attribute what exactly caused that specific user, because a lot of times it's not attributed to a specific campaign, but it came organic that caused the user to immediately contact sales. But we definitely, it's a constant battle. And like I said, we're still a PLG company, and I think that's what's important. Even though our KPI is to improve demos, we know that it's through at the end, it's through the product itself. What we're simply trying to do is make it simpler for those who perhaps know already that they want to purchase an enterprise package. We make it easier for them, and we help to support it through the website, through the content, and really putting that the contact sales CTA in the right places in order to make it easier.
Right. I have one question by Nikita as well, so I'll just take it up. How long do you let your tests run? Is it time based or number of users based, and how much data do you need? Do you generally need to make a decision as per Lusha's experience?
Obviously. So this is also a question that we a lot of times battle with. First of all, some tests, for instance, the enterprise page that I showed, that's a very small test. I mean, it had a big impact, but you don't get that many users going to the enterprise page. So that test can run for a very long time until you get masses of data. So at some point, you really have to see, even after perhaps 100 sessions or 200 sessions, if there is a difference, and if you are creating an impact already, you don't. I believe you don't necessarily have to. Now, in other cases, like the homepage, we might run the test for a few weeks or a month, or sometimes if it's a page that has a lot of volume, we can even do it in a matter of a week and a half. So I don't think there's a rule of thumb. I think there's a lot of being conscious and you know, just taking a decision based on the amount of volume and what you see from the data that you currently have. And for instance, on PPC, a lot of times we'll run tests for a lot longer, since, you know, there's volumes of, or sorry, actually shorter, since you have volumes of data and you can, you know, come quickly
Also,
to a decision.
like adding on to this, there is a VW A/B testing significance calculator where you just enter the numbers and it tells you that if your test is genuinely significant enough to conclude. So Nikita, I think you can also leverage that for your benefit. Just a VW to VW kind of a suggestion coming from my end. That's all, Nimrod. You have been a fantastic speaker, and thank you for presenting such insightful resources again. Thank you, audience, for joining in. I wish to see you in the next many more upcoming VW webinars. I'll take it off. This is Raghav, your marketing manager and your co-host. Thank you.